Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, Canadian Snowman, and we're back with some more Napoleon. We've made it Napoleon Endgame, France, 1814. Napoleon just lost a giant battle, the Battle of the Nations. He just got whooped. He got surrounded, had to retreat. Even the retreat got messed up. Bridge got blown up, and 30,000 of his own troops got taken prisoner. I mean, catastrophic. And now we're left off. He's all the way back in Paris because, for political reasons, because obviously everyone in France is probably freaking out in Paris with them losing it. So, he's probably got work some magic down there so he doesn't get overthrown or something. I don't know how the political stuff works, so with that, but I'm assuming he's trying to calm people down and say, hey man, we're good. Trust me, I'm gonna make it better for us. But I don't know. We're gonna find out. I'm assuming the nations are gonna close in on him, and I force his hand. I force him. They want to try to get him to surrender. I don't know what's going down. I know we have one more episode left. Obviously, we saw the Marshall series, but as far as the camp of Napoleon and the whole Napoleon thing, is one more, which is Waterloo, which I know is going to be epic. I'm assuming that's the last battle. I'm assuming that's what that is, and I'm assuming this is the lead up to it. I could be totally wrong. We might start off with a battle right here, but I guess we'll find out. But anyways, please hit that like and subscribe, guys. Please and thank you. And yeah, we'll jump into this video. What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I need to go here. Right. After all you've won.
In October 1813, Napoleon had suffered his heaviest ever defeat at Leipzig, the Battle of the Nations. Surviving French forces, exhausted, sick and demoralized, retreated to the River Rhine and prepared to defend France from invasion. But in November, the armies of the Sixth Coalition paused their advance, and Austrian Foreign Minister Metternich offered peace terms.
Really?
The Frankfurt proposals would allow Napoleon to keep his throne if France returned to her so-called natural frontiers. It was the best offer Napoleon was likely to get, now that his back was to the wall, and all Europe's great powers were united against him. Even so, he did not accept the terms. He merely agreed to reopen negotiations. To the Allies, and many in France itself, it proved that Napoleon would not listen to reason. The war went on, and by January 1814, Napoleon's situation looked even worse. Many of his besieged garrisons in the east were starved into surrender. Marshal Davout, with 34,000 men in Hamburg, was now besieged. Denmark, one of France's last allies, was invaded by Bernadotte's Swedish army and made to join the coalition.
Wow.
French troops evacuated the Netherlands, which reasserted its independence after nearly 20 years of...
I'm sorry, but he should. I mean, he might end up with a better offer here, but just thinking that seems like a really good offer. Hey, we'll give your country back the way it was, before this all started. Because Battle of the Nations kind of have them up against the wall. It feels like where they could lose land. So I don't know, man. Seems like a good deal right now. I mean, but who knows? Napoleon might get more at the end of this whole thing than he would have got right then. But anyways.
invaded the Netherlands, which reasserted its independence after nearly 20 years of French control. In Italy, Eugene's army faced a new enemy, Joachim Murat, King of Naples, now marching north with 30,000 men to honor his new alliance with the Sixth Coalition.
Oh, wow. Turned against him.
In Paris, Napoleon responded to the crisis with a series of extreme measures. Property taxes doubled, state salaries and pensions suspended, 300,000 new conscripts called up, from a country already exhausted by 20 years of war. He ordered the release of Pope Pius, under French house arrest for the last 5 years, to try to shore up his support in Italy. He even agreed to release Fernando, the Bourbon King of Spain, to take up his throne in exchange for peace between France and Spain, a condition that Fernando was in no position to honor. But these concessions were too little, far too late.
Yeah.
In January, 2 coalition armies crossed the Rhine into France.
Here we go.
Blücher's army of Silesia and Schwarzenberg's army of Bohemia. Outnumbered French forces in their path could only fall back. On the 25th of January, Napoleon said farewell to his wife and son at the Tuileries Palace before leaving for the front. He would never see either of them again.
Wow.
With just 70,000 men, he faced odds of 4 to 1. Most of his troops were raw conscripts.
He doesn't see him again, but I do know that he didn't get killed. I know he gets sent just from, like, I guess, like, previous, like, French Revolution or whatever videos I've seen. He gets sent to an island or something like that. Something like that. He doesn't die in battle. Like, I know he doesn't die in battle. So I'm guessing, he gets sent to the island, doesn't get to say goodbye. I'm guessing.
Odds of 4 to 1. Most of his troops were raw conscripts, some without uniforms, many just learning how to hold a musket.
Yeah.
But for the first time in years, Napoleon's army was so small that he'd be able to exercise direct command over all its movements. The result would be one of the most audacious and brilliant campaigns in history.
Okay.
Imagine Napoleon waging war in the 20th century. His cavalry replaced by armored vehicles, cannon by attack helicopters, and Xbox, and his cross-platform between PC and consoles. Use the link in our video description to join the action and get a special sign-up bonus. Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video.
Yeah, thank you, War Thunder. Oh, okay.
The battle for France would be fought east of Paris, mostly across Champagne, a flat region divided by the rivers Marne and Seine and their tributaries. In late January, fields were dusted with snow and roads quickly turned to mud. Napoleon learned that the coalition armies were widely scattered, with part of Blücher's army near Napoleon's old college at Brienne. The Emperor advanced rapidly, hoping to trap and destroy part of Blücher's army. But after a hard day's fighting that cost both sides 3,000 casualties, Blücher was able to retreat towards Schwarzenberg's army.
Okay.
That evening, Napoleon was nearly skewered by a charging Cossack, saved only by General Gourgaud's good shooting.
Damn.
As Napoleon tried to work out the enemy's movements, Blücher, heavily reinforced by Schwarzenberg, made a surprise attack at La Rothière. Allied troops advanced through swirling snow to assault the village, defiantly held by young French conscripts. one was so inexperienced that Marshal Marmont had to personally show him how to load his musket during the battle. By late afternoon, Wreder's Bavarian corps was falling on Napoleon's flank.
God.
Heavily outnumbered, Napoleon had no option but to retreat, having lost 5,000 casualties and 73 guns abandoned in the thick mud. The Allies' frontal attacks meant their losses were greater, but by combining their armies, they defeated Napoleon on French soil for the first time.
Okay.
Believing Napoleon would now retreat towards Paris, the Allies decided to advance along two routes to ease pressure on the roads. Blücher would take a northern route along the Marne. Schwarzenberg would follow the Seine. But dividing their armies again would play right into Napoleon's hands.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Here we go. Let's do it.
After 2 days to reorganize, Napoleon continued his retreat to Nogent, where he learned that the Allies had split their armies. Not only that, they were advancing at different speeds. The aggressive Blücher racing ahead, while the more cautious Schwarzenberg lagged behind. Leaving Oudinot and Victor to guard the Seine bridges and delay Schwarzenberg, Napoleon raced north through mud and rain with 30,000 men. The army of Silesia was strung out on the march, oblivious to the danger it was in. First, Napoleon fell on General Ossuffiev's Russian 9th Corps at Champaubert, destroying it, taking its commander and 2,000 men prisoner.
Yeah, it's one.
The next morning, he marched on General Osten-Sacken's force near Montmiral. This was a much larger force, with 2 infantry and 1 cavalry corps, and was expecting support from York's Prussian 1st Corps. But the Prussians were late, and Sacken's troops could not withstand the French onslaught. At this desperate hour, the Emperor's elite Old Guard were no longer held back, but were often thrown into the thick of the fighting. By the end of the day, Napoleon had inflicted another 3,500 casualties, twice his own losses, and the Allies were in rapid retreat.
Damn.
Napoleon had ordered Marshal MacDonald to cut off the enemy's escape by seizing the Marne Bridge at Château Thierry. But York's Prussians got there first. The next day, Napoleon could only batter their rear guard as the enemy fled across the Marne, destroying the bridge behind them. Sending Marshal Mortier to rebuild the bridge and continue the pursuit, Napoleon doubled back to rejoin Marmont, who had been left to keep watch on Blücher. Napoleon attacked at Vauchamp, using General Grouchy's cavalry to outflank Blücher's army, which was soon in headlong retreat.
Oh, damn.
A merciless French pursuit inflicted 6,000 Prussian and Russian casualties.
What?
Napoleon lost just 600 men.
That's insane, man.
Napoleon had taken on an enemy army almost twice his size, and beaten it 4 times in just 6 days. Blücher had lost an estimated 15,000 casualties in battle, and another 15,000 in smaller engagements, as stragglers or deserters.
That's awesome, dude. Look at those numbers, man. Like, they definitely underestimated him. You thought he was going to run back to Paris, tail between his legs, but nope. He sat back, waited to see what those guys were going to do first. They split their army. He's like, okay, you can do that? You know, I can take you on that way. And surprise attacks him and just wiping them out, man, like left and right. I don't know if these other guys were panicking, now they're retreating. So, that's awesome, dude. Got me excited again, Napoleon. You're letting me down there last episode, but you're helping yourself out here. All right.
the 15,000 in smaller engagements as stragglers or deserters. For now, the army of Silesia had been scattered and neutralized. But in the south, Marshals Victor and Oudinot had not been able to prevent Schwarzenberg's army of Bohemia from crossing the Seine in 3 places.
Why Napoleon?
Austrian troops were now just 40 miles from Paris. Leaving Mortier and Marmont to keep watch on Blücher, Napoleon raced south. Schwarzenberg, alarmed by news of Blücher's defeat and of Napoleon's approach, immediately ordered a retreat.
Really?
It was too late for Wittgenstein's advance guard, routed at Mormant with 2,000 casualties.
Please beat him back.
Napoleon sent Victor's Second Corps to seize the bridge at Montereau, but was so infuriated by its slow progress that he sacked Victor and gave his corps to General Gérard. The next day, at the Battle of Montereau, the French drove the Allied Württemberg Corps back across the river, with 30% losses. According to some accounts, the Emperor sighted the French cannon himself, as he had at Lodi 18 years before.
Damn.
Napoleon had the Allies on the run. But how long could it last?
True.
Even as fighting continued, negotiations between France and the coalition reopened at Châtillon-sur-Seine on the 5th of February. The Allied terms were now more severe.
Oh,
A
yeah?
return to France's frontiers of 1791, which meant the additional loss of Belgium, a humiliation that Napoleon refused to accept. Instead, he tried to revive the Frankfurt proposals, hoping to play for time and to split the coalition, whose war aims varied from Britain's hard line to Austria's more ambiguous position. But this hope was thwarted by British Foreign Secretary Lord Castlereagh. On the 1st of March, he persuaded the Allies to sign the Treaty of Chaumont. In it, Russia, Prussia, Austria and Great Britain agreed to keep 150,000 troops in the field and not to negotiate separately with France, while Britain added the sweetener of a £5 million subsidy to be shared among the Allies. The treaty's secret articles specified common war aims, including the future independence of the German states, Switzerland and Italy, while Spain was to be returned to the Bourbons and Holland to the House of Orange.
Okay.
The four powers even agreed that once they'd defeated Napoleon, they'd form a 20-year defensive alliance to maintain peace in Europe, a sign of their newfound commitment to each other. A split in the coalition had been Napoleon's last best hope for a favourable peace. That was gone.
Damn.
And news from across the country was bleak. French cities were surrendering to the Allies without a fight. Nancy, Dijon and Mâcon had all fallen. In the south, Wellington defeated Marshal Soult at Orthez, forcing him to fall back on Toulouse. 2 weeks later, as British troops approached the city of Bordeaux, it declared loyalty to France's Bourbon kings. The mayor himself rode out to greet the British, bearing a white cockade, the sign of Bourbon allegiance. Napoleon's hope for a nation in arms to resist the Allies had not materialized. Allied troops, particularly Cossacks, often robbed French civilians and committed some atrocities.
Damn.
French peasants took revenge when they could, but there was no guerrilla war to mirror what French troops had encountered in Spain or Russia. The chief desire among ordinary French people was for peace, at almost any price.
Come on, Napoleon, what we got, man?
Any talk of Napoleon's defeat in late February was premature. The French Emperor was driving Schwarzenberg's army of Bohemia before him, even though it was twice his size. But Schwarzenberg scrambled to safety behind the River Aube. Napoleon knew he had to land another decisive blow soon, so turned his attention back to Blücher. After an aborted attempt to join forces with Schwarzenberg, Blücher had decided to resume his advance on Paris, gathering reinforcements en route, and with only Marmont and Mortier's weak corps to oppose him. Leaving Marshal MacDonald in command in the south, Napoleon set off to intercept Blücher, covering 60 miles in 3 days along terrible roads choked with mud.
Wow, that's fast, man.
At Napoleon's approach, Blücher retreated across the Marne, burning the bridges behind him. 24 hours later, they'd been rebuilt by French engineers, and Napoleon was poised to crush Blücher against the Aisne River, because the major crossing point at Soissons was held by a Franco-Polish garrison.
Oh.
But after just a day's fighting, the garrison commander at Soissons tamely surrendered, allowing Blücher to escape.
Oh, man.
Napoleon continued his pursuit across the Aisne, still hoping to cut off the army of Silesia. But at Craon, he encountered Russian troops in a strong defensive position. The Russians fought stubbornly. The French finally forced the enemy to withdraw, but only at the cost of 6,000 casualties, including many irreplaceable veterans from Napoleon's guard. Napoleon pushed on to Laon. But by now, Blücher had concentrated his forces, 98,000 troops in all, and outnumbered Napoleon 2 to 1. French attacks were repulsed, while Marmont's corps was caught off guard by a late Allied counterattack and routed. Napoleon was lucky to avoid a much heavier defeat. Blücher, usually aggressive to the point of recklessness, was unwell and had been told Napoleon's army was twice as big as it was, leading him to act with unusual caution.
Ow.
Laon was a heavy blow to Napoleon. 6,500 casualties he could not afford. Undaunted, he fell back to Soissons, and after a brief moment to reorganize, he marched on the city of Reims, which had just fallen to Saint-Priest's Russian corps. In a whirlwind assault, Napoleon retook the city. Saint-Priest himself was mortally wounded, his corps routed.
Here you go.
Meanwhile, in the south, Schwarzenberg had resumed his offensive as soon as he found out Napoleon had gone north.
He's way north now.
In heavy fighting, he'd driven Oudinot and MacDonald back from the River Aube. 5 days later, the Allies had recaptured Troyes, as MacDonald retreated behind the River Seine. Now, after 4 days to rest and reorganize his battered army, Napoleon was coming south once more.
Oh, you get from behind?
Schwarzenberg, emboldened by news of Napoleon's defeat at Laon, decided that this time he would stand and fight.
Uh-oh.
Napoleon advanced on Arcis-sur-Aube, ignoring reports that the enemy was not retreating as he believed, but gathering for battle. As heavy fighting broke out, Napoleon still believed he faced only the enemy rearguard. It was a nasty surprise to discover that he faced the entire might of the army of Bohemia. 28,000 men against 80,000. In desperate fighting, Napoleon personally rallied fleeing troops and exposed himself to enemy fire, having his horse killed under him by an exploding shell.
What?
But the odds were too great.
Great. Man, you know Napoleon is all in, man. Like, he's like rallying troops. He's going in basically into the danger zone. Like, it's now or never. Like, come on, guys, let's go. We gotta stop these guys. Man, obviously it doesn't work, but man, he's rallying his troops. You know, his troops are like, man, our emperor's going in after him. We gotta follow suit. You know, that's awesome.
But the odds were too great. At the end of the second day, Napoleon was forced to order the retreat.
Damn, see?
Napoleon believed his army was now too weak to take on the Allies directly. So he decided to change strategy.
Okay.
He would march into the rear of the Allied armies, join up with some of his isolated garrisons, and cut the enemy's lines of communication, forcing them to abandon their advance on Paris.
Okay, so this works.
But the Allies, until now always one step behind Napoleon, had just received crucial information. Talleyrand, the most brilliant French diplomat of the age, and the most slippery. He'd served France's monarchy, the Revolution, then Napoleon, until in 1807 he fell out irrevocably with the Emperor over foreign policy. He now believed that Napoleon was dragging France into ruin and worked behind the scenes to ensure his downfall.
Oh.
From Paris, he wrote to the Russian Emperor Alexander at Allied headquarters, informing him that in the capital, support for Napoleon was crumbling, and the city's defences had been completely neglected.
Damn.
He urged the Allies to march immediately on Paris, without allowing Napoleon to distract them. Talleyrand's information was confirmed when the Allies intercepted a report from Napoleon's chief of police, General Savary, meant for the Emperor. The treasury, arsenals and powder stores are empty. We are completely at the end of our resources. The population is discouraged and discontented, wishing peace at any price. As Napoleon...
Man, that's gotta suck, man. You're trying to win a war for your country, and you got insiders here like stabbing you in the back and telling your enemy all the intel and shit. Like, they don't need to know all that. You know, it's just a struggle for power on the inside, you know. This guy obviously wants the power, and over Napoleon, wants Napoleon to be down so he can rise up. I get it. But damn, it's like, and Napoleon just can't get a break, it seems like, you know. As soon as he starts getting going again, it's like something else pops up. It's like, geez.
As Napoleon advanced on Saint-Dizier, the Allies sent General Witzengerode and 10,000 cavalry to harass his army and to screen their own movements. Then began their march on Paris.
Here we go.
At Fère-Champenoise, they collided with Marmont and Mortier's corps, advancing to join Napoleon. An entire National Guard division, 5,000 men, was virtually wiped out as the marshals suffered a crushing defeat. Napoleon feared that the fall of Paris would be a fatal blow to his regime. His political authority and ability to wage war might not recover. So, when he received news of the Allies' movements, he tore up his plans and ordered a forced march back to Paris, intending to lead its defense in person.
You gonna make it back in time?
Napoleon's wife and son were evacuated from the capital, along with most of his ministers. His brother, Joseph, the ex-king of Spain, was in charge of the city's defences, but had done little. Paris was awash with rumours of treachery and defeat. Marmont and Rothière were able to reach Paris before the Allies, adding their troops to the garrison. It now totaled 37,000 men, including some hardened veterans of the Guard, but many more young conscripts, while a third were part-time soldiers of the National Guard. The Allies had 120,000 seasoned troops outside the city, and given the urgency of taking Paris before Napoleon could intervene, their elite guards and grenadier divisions would lead the way.
And here we go.
On the 30th of March, they began their assault from the north. Heavy fighting raged throughout the day. The city's defenders fought bravely, inflicting several thousand casualties on the advancing enemy. But defeat was inevitable. That night, to save Paris from destruction, Marshal Marmont agreed to surrender the city, on condition the garrison was permitted to leave with its weapons. At the Hôtel des Invalides, the 71-year-old Marshal Serrurier oversaw the burning of 1,400 flags and standards captured from France's enemies, as well as Frederick the Great's sword and sash, so they would not fall into Allied hands. Napoleon was just 15 miles from Paris when he was informed of the city's surrender. He sat with his head in his hands for 15 minutes.
Damn. I don't know, I just my blood boiling, dude. It's like, come on, man. Don't take Paris.
On the 31st of March, 1814, France's enemies marched into Paris for the first time since the 100 Years' War. Parisian crowds cheered the three Allied monarchs, bringers of peace. Everyone in Paris was suddenly a royalist once more.
What?
Above all, they cheered for Emperor Alexander of Russia, now hailed as Europe's saviour.
What?
Don Cossacks bivouacked on the Champs-Élysées. Allied troops generally behaved well. "35 miles away, Napoleon was at Fontainebleau with 36,000 men, all of them hungry and exhausted after their 100-mile forced march. Nevertheless, Napoleon began planning an immediate advance on Paris. But for the first time, he faced unanimous opposition from his ministers and marshals, including Ney, MacDonald, Oudinot, and Berthier. They reminded him of his oath to act for the good of France. He accused them of disloyalty, acting only to save themselves. They told him the war was lost, and he must abdicate in favour of his son if possible. On the 4th of April, Marshal Marmont surrendered his entire corps to the coalition, which was marched over to the enemy lines against the wishes of many of its officers and men. This was a devastating blow to Napoleon, and encouraged the Allies to reject his offer of a conditional abdication in favour of his son. 2 days later, he abdicated without conditions. The Allied powers having proclaimed that the Emperor Napoleon is the only obstacle to the re-establishment of peace in Europe, the Emperor Napoleon, faithful to his oath, declares that he renounces for himself and his heirs the thrones of France and Italy, and that there is no personal sacrifice, including his life, that he is not ready to make in the interests of France.
Damn.
Napoleon's abdication was formalized by the Treaty of Fontainebleau, by which he was allowed to keep the title of emperor, become sovereign of the small island of Elba, and retain a bodyguard of 400 men. News came too late to prevent Wellington's attack on Toulouse, leading to a costly and pointless battle, with more than 7,000 casualties.
Damn.
The night after his abdication, Napoleon tried to commit suicide, using the poison that had been made for him in Russia in case of capture.
Damn.
But it had lost its potency, and he survived. 2 weeks later, Napoleon bade farewell to his old guard at Fontainebleau Palace and began his journey into exile.
Damn. I didn't think it was going to go down like that, because it's already over. Like, I did not expect him, this episode, for it to be done. I can't believe it's like, it's over. So what's Waterloo? Like, I don't know what that is now. I thought that was like the ending battle. Damn, I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. We ain't got much left. What else you got for me, guys?
The Napoleonic Wars, which had raged on land and sea for 11 years, seemed finally at an end. The death toll is unknown, but historians estimate that 2 to 3 million lives were lost across Europe. Most soldiers died not in battle, but from disease. Many thousands were left maimed and disfigured. For most of this period, Napoleon was master of Europe, imposing treaties on humbled enemies, redrawing frontiers, overthrowing old regimes, and making new kings. He was the last figure in history to combine total political power with frontline military genius, in the mold of Alexander and Caesar. But it seemed Napoleon's reign was to end in abject military defeat. However, exile on Elba did not prove to Napoleon's taste. In less than 10 months, he would return to France to fight one last great campaign.
What?
To reclaim his throne.
What? My God, it's not over? What the hell? That's what Waterloo is. He comes back. Waterloo is the last battle. What? Was not expecting that. Like, I wasn't even expecting this kind of ending. I thought Waterloo was gonna be like the last battle, the whole thing, but he gets sent off and then he comes back, like rallies troops to try and take power again. What? That's insane, man. This episode, like the ups and downs, is crazy. Like, you feel bad and you're up, he's coming back, and I don't know, just up and down with the battles and the, I don't know, all the troops going up and down, and I don't know, man. It was exciting, and just like you didn't know what was happening, what was going to happen next. That was awesome. That was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. But looks Waterloo's next. Okay, let's see how this plays out. But awesome, awesome. Anyways, guys, please hit that like and subscribe button, guys, if you haven't. Oh man, this is I don't even know what to say. I'm excited for this last one. I'm excited. I want to see what goes down. So, but we'll see though. We'll see. We'll see how this plays out. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching once again. And I'll catch you guys in a future video for sure. Obviously, I'll catch you guys in the next episode here. Sorry, I'm excited. I don't know what to say or think right now because we still got one last battle, and Napoleon's coming back. Like, he ain't going down like this. And awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Endgame. It's not the endgame now. We still got We still got one more to go. But anyways, guys, peace. I'll catch you guys in the next videos. Thank you for watching.